As a first-year PhD, if someone had told me these 7 pieces of advice, my entire grad school experience might have gone differently. Getting set up in a lab when you enter grad school might sound simple and exciting, but I had a harder time figuring it out than I ever expected. You might hear these things I'm about to say as nice advice from a friend or in passing, but I would tell my past self, do not take what I'm about to tell you lightly. Your happiness and success for the next 4 to 7 years could be dependent on how you navigate this precious first year. The first and most important thing, in my opinion, is your advisor or PI determines a whole lot about how your experience will be. A lot of factors go into a well-rounded PhD experience, but ultimately picking your advisor will shape what kind of training you get, what opportunities you'll have, what and how much you publish, and when you graduate, which, depending on your goals, might be the most important. So listen to what other grad students have to say about the advisor and weigh all the pros and cons with sincerity. It is an important decision and it shouldn't be taken lightly because you will be working together for your whole PhD and potentially after that if you need letters of rec or collaborations in the future. Students may come and go, but not the PI. It might seem like a lot of pressure to pick the perfect PI, but more on that later. Okay, number 2 is to go in with confidence and humility. The first year may be new and exciting, but that doesn't mean it'll be a piece of cake, and that's okay. You may feel great and confident about getting into this program and starting at a new university. You should, that's an amazing accomplishment. But there's a chance the ups and downs of the first year of the PhD may be different than anything you've experienced. So that's why I'm here to help you through it. Number 3, in umbrella or rotational programs specifically, the first year really matters when it comes to making friends in your cohort. So take the time and put in the effort to form those relationships. Your friendships will be necessary throughout your PhD. Once you join a lab, say after your first year, it may be more difficult to meet people outside of your lab, since that's where you spend most of your time. Unless you have the time or a program structure where you can also meet people in other classes, workshops, fellowships, organizations, etc. I didn't do this as much in the first year as I wish I did. I started my grad school applying to a fellowship that took up most of my time in the first months, and I was in a long distance relationship, so that was my main source of socialization. I said no to a lot of social engagements during the critical period of the first term, and I feel it has taken me longer to form those strong connections. Number 4, an important question for first years. How do I secure a lab, particularly for rotation programs? Communicate enthusiasm, initiative, and effort with your potential future lab. This one is huge and can be difficult for introverts or people with social anxiety like me. Whether you are doing rotations or joining a lab directly, they will want to see your interests in order for them to want to hire you. So what does this look like? Be intentional and show face with a PI or your mentor. Actively come up with questions to ask them. Ask lots of questions to whoever is training you, even if you think it's a dumb question. Just ask. In my experience, you don't have to be the most productive scientist per se, because it is hard to be productive when just starting a project in a new lab. But take initiative, ask for protocols, review them before you're going to be trained on something. Ask about next steps or how things fit into the larger context of a project. If you don't understand something, maybe ask for more resources to read up on or a video to watch on a certain technique. It's okay to be a beginner. The point of the PhD is to get training. In some cases, it might be competitive to get a spot in a lab if a lot of people are trying for it or PI has a specific standard. You can try talking to other grad students in the lab and see what they did to stand out, or see if they have any advice for what that particular advisor wants and looks for. Some of these points really hit home for me because I had an interesting experience during my rotations where I was rejected from a lab that I really wanted at the time, which might be because I didn't do enough of these things in hindsight. I was studying for my giant first year exams and frantically trying to find a 4th rotation lab for the summer after my first year. I was exhausted, disappointed, stressed. I interviewed with potential advisors, one of which later emailed me to tell me that to him I came off as reserved and uninterested, and basically had concerns and advised me to do something about it in the future. Being perceived as reserved and quiet as a woman and an Asian American woman is a whole other topic I can get into. But regardless of if the assumptions about me were true or not, I can't emphasize enough how enthusiasm, initiative, and effort will make you look like a good candidate for a lab. And in general, if anyone is already having to disprove preconceived notions that people may have on top of that, it's very important to put in this work in the beginning so you can lock in that spot. Number 5, find your support and take advantage of your mentors. Grad school is an adjustment. It is difficult to navigate. And unfortunately, the systems are not always set up in a way where we feel supported and taken care of. But there are definitely resources out there, so please use them. This could look like peer mentoring programs, first year or program advisors, grad counselors, a senior grad student, women in science group, or LGBTQ+ community, etc. I started seeing my grad counselor regularly after hitting a slump, which, by the way, you are going to hit a slump at some point if no one told you yet. This was the most heard advice during my interviews. But with a grad counselor, hearing the perspective of someone outside of my lab bubble who is rooting for me is very refreshing and motivating. Number 6, if you're doing rotations, I have a lot to say about the process.
It was a lot more difficult than I expected, if that's not clear by now.
I thought it'd be fun and a breeze, which it was fun, but not a breeze. Nothing is perfect. You may not find the perfect lab, perfect PI, perfect coworkers with all your criteria checked off. Finding a lab is a lot like dating, we decided. Both sides are trying to feel each other out and see if they want to continue and commit, but neither side will be 100% perfect. It's a risk both take, and there may be some compromising, which is why it's important, like a relationship, to know your deal breakers in terms of what you want to get out of the PhD, which we'll talk more about next. Okay, so number 7, so to help you navigate these big decisions, really try and figure out your goals for yourself and for your PhD. That's how you'll know which labs to pick and which one will be the best for you in the end. What is most important for you in the long term? You may not really know at this point, but talking to other grad students will help you hear other experiences of what they prioritize and whether or not things worked out. Do you want to become an independent researcher in academia, publish in high-tier journals, and work towards becoming faculty? Do you want to get the degree as soon as possible and head into the industry workforce? Or maybe you're switching fields and you want to learn new techniques. You want to learn critical thinking better and how to ask new and innovative questions. Do you want to have a very translational project or one with clinical data? These values will be important in deciding if they align with your future lab, but especially your future PI, because that's going to be your boss. Align on your goals with your PI, and you both will get what you need out of this. And for number 8, just as a reminder, the grass is always greener, so appreciate what you have once you decide on a path and make things work as best as you can. You're good enough to get the degree, otherwise they wouldn't have let you in. So just keep making steps to get there, and you will. A PhD can involve a completely new set of hurdles and schedules. If you want to know my tips to having an ideal weekly schedule to keep steady progress during the long haul, check out my upcoming video to help you optimize your PhD journey weekly. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. This is funny. And whether or not that worked out or not.